Manchester City heading down to the London Stadium to pop some bubbles, some of those West Ham bubbles. I will be doing a watch along tomorrow, so come and join me for that one. 5:30 kickoff in the UK time. West Ham away. Let's be having it. But I'm feeling a bit, unpredictable. I wasn't too sure what to make of this game, to be honest, because I've looked at West Ham this season. And I saw a really good performance in the first game, but they lost. And then they've won the most two recent games, but they didn't play that well. So I thought there's a little bit of unpredictability about West Ham at the minute. But then I heard this.
There is a vulnerability there. They are. I've got West Ham to beat them at the weekend. People say that's crazy. If it actually happens, I'll look very, very good.
Oh, well, there we go. It's in the bag. In the bag. No problem. We've won. No problem. Absolutely sorted. Smooth sailing from here on out against West Ham because the man has spoken, and when he speaks, it's always wrong. So it's in the bag. There we go. Job done. Man City have won. Congratulations to Manchester City. But there is still that level of unpredictability about West Ham. The new manager syndrome is what I've always gone on about, certainly over the last few years. But I think that's changed now. I think when a new manager comes into a football club, back in the day, 5-6 years ago, the emotions took a big part, a big factor in how that side suddenly just went up a notch. The new manager comes in, whichever football club you want to give as an example, they come in and everyone just raises their game another level and they play better football. Whereas now, I think the new manager syndrome has actually gone a little bit the other way. And I feel like that's because of the influx of Spanish innovative tacticians coming into the Premier League. Lopetegui, let's name the man. Coming into West Ham, formerly at Wolves as well. Didn't do very well at Wolves either, by the way. But what he did do at Sevilla was fantastic. But the reason I'm talking about the new manager syndrome is because I feel like the new tactics have to be absorbed and understood from the players. Now, I feel like it takes time. We found that out with Pep Guardiola in his first season in 2016. It was a bit of a rocky road, wasn't it? Up and down. Quality was here, then games we were losing. How were we losing this game? But eventually, if you give the manager enough time, the tactics can bear fruit and do reasonable things. But that's what I'm concerned about from West Ham. But it could be a good time to face them because the players are getting used to Lopetegui's new tactics. Now, what he did at Sevilla was fantastic. 3 consecutive seasons finishing third. That's behind Real Madrid and Barcelona, don't forget, who predominantly dominate that La Liga of theirs. Of course, they won the Europa League in 2020 as well. So he did some fantastic things at West Ham. But some of the other interesting things that he does tactically, I like the fact that he likes to control the game. That's very Pep Guardiola-esque. But other things that he does in his style isn't just about control either. It's got a mixture of defensive solidity as well. And I'm going to show you some facts here. So first of all, you can see the control that West Ham tried to show. These are the match stats that they had against Villa. So they did reasonably well. This is a Champions League Aston Villa side, and the first home game of the season, they got 14 shots away. I felt like they were unlucky to lose that game, West Ham 2-1. I felt like they were the better side of the two. They've got the better XG out of the two. But then you fast forward to the following week, where they got dominated by Crystal Palace in terms of possession. So Lopetegui's lost that control he wants. And they go and win the game. I felt like it was a bit of a sucker punch. And Crystal Palace wasted some chances. Eze hit the bar, as well as missing a one-on-one situation. Palace should have been 2 up before West Ham even scored. Then, of course, they played midweek in the Carabao Cup. Players changed, so there isn't too much you can read. But at home to Bournemouth, they had less of the football than Bournemouth did. So Lopetegui hasn't got off to the greatest start. Now, if you look at what he achieved at Sevilla, though, that's where you really see what he's all about and what he wants to do for West Ham. So you can see these Sevilla stats. This is ranging from 2019 to 2022. 3 years I'm showing you here. So possession-wise, in 2019, 57.9%. That's third best in the league. In 2021, 60.9% possession he was averaging, which is the second best in the league. And then in 2022, 59%, third best in the league. Goals conceded, though, that's what they're all about. It's keeping them out. He's a very unique manager in the fact that he wants to control the ball, but it's all about recycling it. It's about preventing the opposition from scoring, and not they're quite a low-scoring side, Sevilla were. And that's followed Wolves a little bit and West Ham as well. He's a low-scoring manager, which, again, I think that suits Manchester City. You can see the goals conceded there. Third best, and then the first best in the whole of La Liga over the course of those 3 seasons. The XG again, third best, first best, and third best. Now, in terms of goals scored, 5th in 2020, and then 7th in 2021, and 6th in 2022, with an XG of 5th, and then 11th in the following seasons after that. So I think there's a very unique manager we've got here that has a lot of what Pep and a lot of the Spanish managers are. Mikel Arteta tries to emulate that Pep Guardiola style of controlling the football and build up from West Ham. But expect a mid-block. I expect them to offer a counter press as well, which I think this suits City though. All this information is good news for City, which is why I've brought it to your attention, because they're struggling to control the ball against Bournemouth right now. They're struggling to control the ball against Crystal Palace. They're definitely going to struggle against Manchester City. Of course they are, because they're just not settled in their ways yet. Their tactical ways are not fully understood, clearly, with the evidence that we've seen, albeit they won those 2 games where they didn't control. So they're going to have to take their chances. Are they going to employ Wan-Bissaka? He's someone I hate playing against Wan-Bissaka in a United shirt, even in a Crystal Palace shirt. He used to pocket Leroy Sané in a Crystal Palace shirt. We've struggled against Wan-Bissaka in the past. The FA Cup final, first half, he pocketed Gvardiol, and Gvardiol had no success coming down that left side. Fast forward into the second half of that game, Wan-Bissaka had Jeremy Doku. Not only did Jeremy Doku score a goal, it was too late. The damage had already been done, though. We were 2-0 down, but following on from that game, there was chances being created, and Wan-Bissaka was being pulled all over the show. He showed his quality, though, at Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, coming forward with a marauding run, Wan-Bissaka. So he's a player that I think has to play. I think he will hopefully not play from a City perspective, and they play Koufal, who I think has got a much better attacking sense than Wan-Bissaka does. But is he going to leave big gaping holes at the back for the likes of Jeremy Doku or Savinho, whoever plays on that side, to expose? I'm hoping that's the case, because we're used to seeing it at Sevilla as well with Jesus Navas and Acuna. Jesus Navas, formerly at Manchester City, of course, they used to bomb forward. So he likes his fullbacks to push forward. Are they going to get the opportunity against Manchester City? I'm not convinced they are. So, team news. Manchester City, let's start with Manchester City. Oscar Bob, of course, is still out. Rodri trained midweek. Bloody brilliant news. Will he be thrown straight into the starting 11? Probably not. I imagine he'll be introduced maybe as a second half substitution, and what a substitution that'll be. I hope he's in the squad at least, because that'll be good. Phil Foden's back from the shits. Good news. Will he make it back into the squad as well? Because instead of who? Who are you playing him instead of? Jeremy Doku and Savinho have been fantastic on the wings. You're going to take Kevin De Bruyne off. Bernardo Silva's got a new role, which involves him dropping quite deep to play alongside Kovacic occasionally here and there in the match to collect the ball off the back 4, which is not what Phil Foden... He could do it, I'm sure he could, but I don't think he's as good as Bernardo Silva as he is at doing it. I think dropping deep is Bernardo Silva's game. He can do it perfectly well. Can Phil Foden? I'm not so sure. So for me, there's only one player that Phil Foden should be replacing with this system, and that is Kevin De Bruyne. And are you going to take Kevin De Bruyne off the way he played against Ipswich and the way he played against Chelsea? Absolutely not. No way. So either one of the wingers or Kevin De Bruyne. And I don't think either winger or Kevin De Bruyne deserves to be dropped right now. So Phil Foden going off last season, being player of the year. Absolutely astonishing season Phil Foden had this year, but he's got competition, and that's good news. But I know the Foden fans, maybe I'm a Foden fan. Why wouldn't I be a Foden fan? Mank City player, do you know what I mean? He's an absolute legend already with a ridiculous amount of trophies to his name as well. Unbelievable player. He's got competition though. He's got to work to get back into this starting 11. It's just the nature of the beast at Manchester City, unfortunately. Kovacic as well is reportedly okay as of now. This is pre-recorded, by the way, before Pep Guardiola has spoken in his pre-match press conference. So any of that news I'm hoping hasn't changed. Sounds unlikely with a lot of that information being the most latest, I'm hoping as well. But in terms of West Ham, Aaron Cresswell still out with a hamstring injury, and that is it. Edson Alvarez was out with a big hamstring injury over the summer. He was on the bench against Palace, and he started against Bournemouth. I think he's a cracking player, Edson Alvarez. He's the one that replaced Declan Rice. Let's not forget that. Quality player there. But they brought in Guido Rodriguez as well. So, and he looks all right. He's on the ageing side of a football player, but he looks pretty good. Free transfer that West Ham have signed. He looks a decent player. Right, let's have a look at the predicted starting 11. I'm going to go with City first. And I'm going to go, let's cut to the chase. I'm not changing it. I'm not changing it. I don't see why we need to change it. I think the team is playing very, very well. The system is working. I feel like a lot of opposition managers will be scratching their head as to how to stop Manchester City with what I showed you. The way we play now, we've got options. I mean, we've had teams go very narrow against us, and we've had teams try and go man for man. But if you go man for man, we've got options in the middle and we can move players around. And if you try and block the nucleus of Manchester City and block us at the centre, we've got Savinho and Doku on the wings. It's a case of pick your poison now as the opposition manager. So, yeah, like I said, unchanged for Manchester City, Gvardiol, Akanji and Ruben Diaz at the back with Edison behind them, of course. Going to go with Kovacic, presuming that he's okay in the middle. You've got Rico Lewis in that very unique role, playing as a right central midfielder almost as a right back as well when we don't have the ball. I think you're going to see Kevin De Bruyne again playing on that left central midfield role, again finding himself on the left wing occasionally, which he's looked brilliant, got himself an assist for Erling Haaland against Ipswich as well. And then in the middle is Bernardo Silva, who's doing a lot of pushing and shoving back and forth in that midfield. It's a very fluid midfield, I think. Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne are given the bigger licenses to roam. I think Rico Lewis has a more regimented instructions to his position in this midfield, as well as Kovacic as well. But I think Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne are the two players that are very fluid in this system and expect a lot of motion from those players there. Ahead of them, of course, the big man, Erling Haaland up front, of course. And I'm going to go with Savinho on the right because that's where he started against Ipswich. It was the other way round against Chelsea. It was Savinho on the left and Doku on the right. So I'm not really too concerned. If Savinho puts in the level of performance he did against Ipswich, then I think we beat West Ham. Same for Jeremy Doku. I think we beat West Ham. My preference would to see Doku on the right and Savinho on the left. I've always said that. I prefer to have, especially with Erling Haaland in the middle, getting more crosses coming in naturally from naturally footed left-sided and right-sided players coming in. But I'm not really bothered really that much. But I think Savinho and Doku on the wings has to happen. West Ham, the nipple in net, Areola. And then I think we're going to see Wan-Bissaka on the right to deal with whichever winger is coming down that left-hand side, whether it's Doku or Savinho. Mavropanos and the new man, Max Kilman, who's been a great signing quietly and a very understated signing. That I think it's a very shrewd bit of business West Ham have done there. Good centre-back. Played really well, got off to a good start in his West Ham career. And left-back, we're going to see Emerson, who's a decent attacking threat as well. Can we expose him defensively, though? I think we can. Rodriguez in defensive midfield, and they have quite an interesting middle three with an absolute pivot, a sitting midfielder with Rodriguez, or Edson Alvarez could be, but probably not because he played against Bournemouth. And then ahead of them, I think you got Souček, who's going to push up and down that pitch, and Paquetá being the aggressive playmaker in this midfield. So like I said, Souček in midfield alongside Paquetá. And then I think we'll probably see Antonio again. It could be the new signing Fulkrug, but I think Antonio is more suited, specifically because West Ham will probably look to try and mount a few counter-attacks in this game. With the speed of Jared Bowen on the right, and also the speed and dribbling ability of Mohamed Kudus on the left-hand side, who's an absolutely sensational dribbler. Scored that wonderful goal at the Etihad in the final game of last season with that overhead kick, which got us shit in the bed, didn't it? We were all like, oh, what's he done here? What a knobhead. He scored at the Etihad. We were trying to win a league, mate. What are you doing? Absolutely pinging one in from a corner with an overhead kick. But that's my predicted starting 11s for both sides. I'm going to go 3-0 City, and I would love it to be a nil. I'd take a 1-0. I want a clean sheet. I want to be solid at the back. That's what I want. But get your predictions in below and come and join me for the watch along as well. I'm excited for this one. Blues 5:30 kickoff tomorrow afternoon, Saturday afternoon in the UK. Come and join me for the watch along. It's going to be a good game. Get your comments in below, like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now.